I came home from church to find all my furniture on the lawn and my key didn't work. My hands shook as I stood on the porch I'd swept that very morning, staring at the lock that had just rejected the key I'd been using for 37 years. Through the front window, I could see my daughter Yvette laughing with her husband Gerald, champagne glasses raised in the air like they were celebrating New Year's Eve instead of throwing their mother onto the street on a Sunday afternoon in October. Before we continue, please tell us where you're watching from so we know how far our stories reach, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. The movers were still loading the last of my belongings into a truck I hadn't called. My late mother's china cabinet sat crooked on the grass, one leg sinking into the soil my husband had tended before the cancer took him 5 years ago. I watched a man named Curtis carry out the photo albums from my bedroom, the ones that held pictures of Yvette's first day of school, her graduation, her wedding to Gerald when she promised she'd always take care of me when I got older. I knocked on my own door. My own door. Yvette opened it with her phone in her hand, recording. Her smile was the kind you see on people who've just won something they didn't deserve. "Oh, look, she's back. How was church, Mother? Did you pray for me?" "Yvette, what's happening? Why is my furniture outside? Why doesn't my key work?" She held up a stack of papers I didn't recognize. "Because this house is mine now. You signed it over to me last month, remember? Along with power of attorney. You're getting forgetful in your old age, and I'm just doing what's best for you." The lie came out of her mouth so smooth it could have been rehearsed, and maybe it was. "I never signed anything." "Yvette, I don't understand what's—" "You did, though. You signed everything at the bank with Victor Bradley as witness. Don't you remember going to the bank?" Her voice had that fake sweetness people use when they're pretending to be patient. "It's okay, Mama. Memory problems are normal at your age. That's why I had to take control of your affairs before you hurt yourself." Gerald appeared behind her, his arm around her waist like they were posing for a portrait. "We've arranged a nice little apartment for you, Sandra. Real affordable. Yvette's been working so hard to find you the perfect place." "An apartment? This is my house." "My husband and I built this house. We raised 3 children here. You can't just—" "I can, actually." Yvette tapped her phone screen a few times, then turned it to show me a Facebook post she'd just made. The caption read, "Finally got rid of the old hag. Champagne tastes better in my house now." There were 3 champagne glass emojis and a picture of her and Gerald toasting in my living room. My living room with my furniture, under my roof, on my land. The post already had 42 likes. I felt something crack inside my chest. But it wasn't my heart. It was something older and stronger than that. "Where are Terrell and Jasmine? Do they know what you're doing?" "They don't care, Mama. They agreed you needed supervision. I'm the only one responsible enough to handle your affairs." She leaned against the doorframe like she was bored with the conversation. "The movers are almost done. Your new address is in the papers. The apartment's paid up for 6 months. After that, you'll need to figure something out. Oh, and I transferred your Social Security direct deposit to my account so I can manage your expenses properly." "You transferred my—" The words caught in my throat. "Yvette, that's theft. You can't take someone's Social Security." She laughed, actually laughed. "It's not theft when I have power of attorney, Mother. It's called being a responsible daughter. Now I've got plans this evening, so if you could collect your things from the lawn—" She started to close the door. I put my hand against it. "I want to see those papers you claim I signed." For just a second, something flickered in her eyes, something that looked like worry, but it vanished quick. "They're at my office. I'll make you copies sometime this week. Maybe, if I remember." She pulled the door hard enough to make me step back, and it closed with a sound that felt final as a coffin lid. I stood there on my own porch, locked out of my own life, while my neighbors started gathering on their lawns to watch. Gladys Freeman from next door walked over with her phone out, recording everything. "Sandra, honey, I've been filming since the truck showed up. This isn't right. This isn't legal." "Did you see me sign anything, Gladys? Did you see me agree to any of this?" "No, baby. I saw you leave for church this morning, same as every Sunday. And when you were gone, that truck showed up. I tried to stop them, but Yvette showed them some papers and they kept loading. I looked at the pile of my life scattered across the grass. 69 years of living, reduced to furniture and boxes on a lawn. My wedding dress in a plastic garment bag, draped over a bush like trash. The quilt my grandmother made in 1943, tossed on top of a heap of kitchen supplies. Then I saw him. Preston Thompson, standing by a black car across the street, watching everything. He was the CEO of Harmony Health Services, the company where Yvette worked as an elder care coordinator. I recognized him from the company barbecue last summer, where Yvette had introduced us briefly before pulling him away to talk business. He'd seemed kind then, asking about my late husband and my garden. Now he was just standing there, stone-faced, taking in the scene. What I didn't know yet was that Preston Thompson wasn't there by accident. What I didn't know was that this whole disaster was part of something bigger, something I'd set in motion myself 3 months ago when I'd first suspected what Yvette was really doing at that company. But I'd get to that part later. Right now, I had to figure out where I was going to sleep that night. "Gladys, can I use your phone? Mine's in one of these boxes somewhere, and I need to call Terrell." She handed it over, and I dialed my son's number with shaking fingers. He answered on the 4th ring, breathless like he'd been running. "Hello? Terrell, it's your mother. Yvette just threw me out of my house. She says I signed papers giving her power of attorney, but I never— Mom, I can't talk right now. Keisha and I are at Cameron's soccer game. Can this wait?" "Can it wait? Son, I'm standing in my front yard with all my belongings on the grass. Your sister changed the locks on my house. She stole my Social Security. Look, Yvette told us last week that you were having memory problems. She said you'd been getting confused, forgetting things. She said she needed to take over your finances before you made some bad decisions." His voice had that careful tone people use when they're trying not to upset someone they think is crazy. "Maybe you should just let her help you. She works with elderly people every day. She knows what she's doing." "I'm not confused, Terrell. I'm not forgetting things. Your sister is lying to you." "Mom, I gotta go. Cameron's about to score. We'll talk about this later, okay?" "Just go to the apartment Yvette set up for you and get some rest. Everything will make more sense when you're not so worked up." He hung up before I could respond. I called Jasmine next. She didn't even answer, just sent a text that read, "Yvette already told me you'd be calling with stories. Please get the help she's trying to give you. We love you, but we can't enable your confusion. Talk later." Both my younger children turned against me with lies. I looked down at Gladys's phone and saw that Yvette's Facebook post now had 117 likes. Someone had commented, "About time. Old people don't know when to let go." Someone else wrote, "Enjoy your home, girl. You earned it." I sat down on my overturned dresser right there on the lawn and tried to remember how this had started. When had Yvette changed? When had my eldest daughter, the one who used to bring me flowers every Mother's Day, turned into someone who could throw me away like garbage? The answer came slow, like dawn breaking. About 8 months ago, right after she got promoted to Senior Elder Care Coordinator at Harmony Health Services, she'd started working longer hours, coming around less, asking strange questions about my finances. Then 3 months ago, she'd insisted on taking me to the bank to add her name to my accounts, just in case something happened. I'd refused, and she'd gotten angry in a way I'd never seen before. Cold angry. Calculating angry. That's when the little things started. My mail would go missing. Bills I'd paid would show up as overdue. My credit card would be declined even though I knew I had money in my account. Once, I'd gotten a call from a nursing home asking when I wanted to schedule my tour, even though I'd never called any nursing home. And that's when I'd done something Yvette didn't know about, something that was about to matter more than anything else in this whole mess. 3 months ago, I'd walked into Preston Thompson's office at Harmony Health Services and told him I thought my daughter was stealing from me. More than that, I told him I thought she was using her position at his company to steal from other elderly clients too. I told him about the strange paperwork I'd found in her car when I borrowed it one day, forms with signatures that looked traced, bank account numbers that didn't belong to the names listed. Preston had listened, really listened. Then he'd brought in his head of security and a private investigator named Leonard Shaw, and they'd asked me to do something that scared me more than anything I'd ever done in my life. They asked me to play along, to pretend to be confused, to let Yvette think her plan was working, to become bait in a trap that would catch not just my daughter, but what they suspected was a whole network of employees stealing from vulnerable elderly clients. For 3 months, I'd been acting, pretending to forget things, asking the same questions twice, looking confused when Yvette would coach me about the papers we signed, all while Leonard Shaw documented everything, while Preston Thompson built a case, while federal investigators watched and waited for Yvette to make a mistake big enough to prove their suspicions. Today, with this Facebook post, with the public humiliation, with the champagne celebration, today, Yvette had just made that mistake. But sitting on my dresser on my front lawn, with my neighbors watching and my children turned against me, that knowledge didn't feel like comfort. It felt like I'd bet everything on a hand of cards I couldn't see yet. Gladys was still recording. "Sandra, baby, where you gonna go?" "I don't know yet." I looked at the pile of my possessions, trying to figure out what I could carry, where I could even start. "I guess I need to find this apartment Yvette supposedly set up for me." "You're not going to any apartment that girl arranged. You're coming to stay with me until we figure this out." Gladys put her phone in her pocket and started picking up my clothes from the grass. "Come on now. Let's get your things inside my house before it rains. Then we're gonna call a real lawyer, not whoever Yvette's been using." I watched her fold my blouses with care. This neighbor who'd lived next door for 23 years, who'd brought me casseroles after my husband died, who'd never forgotten my birthday. Meanwhile, my own daughter was inside my house posting updates about how good it felt to be rid of me. Preston Thompson was still across the street, but now he was on his phone, taking pictures of Yvette's Facebook page, documenting everything. Our eyes met for just a second, and he nodded once. It was a small movement, barely noticeable, but I understood what it meant. The trap was working. Everything was going according to plan. I just had to hold on a little longer. But right then, with the October sun setting behind my house, the house where I'd raised 3 babies, where I'd nursed my husband through his last days, where I'd thought I'd live until my own last breath, right then, I wasn't sure I had any holding on left in me. Yvette opened the door one more time, still recording with her phone. "Oh, and Mom, I went through your jewelry box, found some nice pieces that'll look better on me. Hope you don't mind." "Oh wait, you can't mind, because I have power of attorney." She laughed again, that same cruel sound, and slammed the door. That's when Gladys grabbed my hand and squeezed. "She's gonna regret this, Sandra. Whatever's coming for that girl, she's gonna regret every second of this day." If only Gladys knew how right she was. If only Yvette knew what was really happening. If only anyone knew that the confused old woman sitting on the dresser was actually the majority shareholder of Harmony Health Services, having inherited 43% of the company from her father who'd founded it in 1972. But nobody knew that. Not Yvette, not Terrell, not Jasmine. I'd kept it secret for 40 years, living modestly on my husband's pension and my Social Security, while the stock value quietly grew to somewhere around $80 million. My father had made me promise to never tell anyone, to keep it hidden until the time was right. The time was about to be right. I looked at Preston Thompson one more time before Gladys led me toward her house. He was still on his phone, and I could hear him talking even from across the street. "Yes, we got everything on video. The Facebook post, the champagne, everything." She posted her own confession publicly. And there's more. She's accessing the accounts right now. She doesn't know we've been monitoring her computer at work. She thinks she's untouchable. Then he said something that made my heart start beating faster. Tell Agent Stone we're ready to move. Tomorrow morning. And make sure we have everything on the other 14 employees too. We're taking down the whole network. Gladys and I picked up what we could carry, leaving the rest for later. As we walked toward her house, I heard one more sound from inside my home. Yvette's voice, loud and victorious. Gerald, let's take a selfie with all the paperwork. This is going to get so many likes. She had no idea those papers were fake. She had no idea that every document she thought made her powerful was actually evidence in a federal investigation. She had no idea that her Facebook celebration was being used right now to get warrants for her arrest. But she'd find out soon enough. By tomorrow morning, everyone would find out. The question was whether I could survive the night with my dignity intact, and whether my heart could handle what was coming next. Watching my own daughter get arrested, seeing the full scope of her crimes revealed, learning just how many people she'd hurt in her hunger for money that was never even hers to take. I looked back one more time at the house where I'd been happy once, a lifetime ago when my children still loved me, and my husband was still breathing, and the world made sense. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, justice would come. But tonight, I was just a 69-year-old woman carrying armloads of her own life across a neighbor's lawn, locked out of her home, cut off from her money, betrayed by the daughter she'd loved most in this world. Tonight, I was exactly what Yvette thought I was, powerless. And that's exactly what we needed her to believe for just 12 more hours. I woke up in Gladys's guest room at 5:30 on Monday morning to the sound of cars pulling up outside. Heavy cars. Official cars. Through the window, I watched 3 black SUVs and 2 police cruisers park in front of my house, and my stomach did a flip even though I'd been expecting this. Preston Thompson stepped out of the first SUV wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check. Behind him came a woman in an FBI windbreaker, Agent Veronica Stone, and 4 other federal agents I didn't recognize. Leonard Shaw, the private investigator who'd been documenting everything, emerged from the second vehicle with 2 large boxes of evidence. I grabbed my robe and went to the window. Gladys appeared beside me, hair still in rollers, eyes wide. Sandra, what in the world is happening? Justice, I said quietly. That's what's happening. Agent Stone knocked on my door. Well, Yvette's door now, technically, with the kind of knock that means law enforcement. The kind that doesn't wait long for an answer. When Yvette finally opened it, still in her pajamas, her face went from annoyed to terrified in about 2 seconds. I couldn't hear the words from across the street, but I saw Agent Stone hold up her badge. Saw Yvette's mouth form the word what. Saw Gerald appear behind her in his underwear looking like he might faint. Then came the part I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Yvette Washington, you're under arrest for elder abuse, financial exploitation, identity theft, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. You have the right to remain silent. The handcuffs went on my daughter's wrists while neighbors started emerging from their houses up and down the block. Yvette was screaming now, I could hear that much. You can't arrest me. I have power of attorney. Everything I did was legal. My mother is incompetent. Preston Thompson stepped forward then, and even from Gladys's window I could see the cold fury in his expression. Ms. Washington, your mother is Sandra Washington, majority shareholder of Harmony Health Services and daughter of our founder, Gregory Washington. She's been working with us for 3 months to expose your criminal enterprise. Every conversation you had, every document you forged, every account you accessed, we have it all. The look on Yvette's face was something I'll remember until my dying day. Pure shock, pure disbelief. She actually stumbled backward like she'd been hit. That's impossible. My mother is poor. She lives on Social Security. She doesn't have any... Your mother owns 43% of a company worth $185 million, Agent Stone interrupted. which means she's worth approximately $80 million, and you tried to steal her Social Security check. Gladys grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. Sandra Washington, are you telling me you're secretly rich? My father made me promise to never tell anyone, I said, watching them load Yvette into the back of a police car. He wanted me to live a normal life, raise my family without money changing things. The stock value just kept growing over the years, and I kept the secret. I was going to tell my children eventually, leave it to them in my will. But then Yvette started stealing from elderly people, and I realized I had the resources to stop her. Gerald was being handcuffed now, too. Apparently, he'd been helping forge documents. They loaded him into a separate car while Yvette screamed his name from behind the glass. My phone, the one I'd finally found in my boxes last night, started ringing. Terrell. I answered it. Mom, what the hell is happening? I just got a call from the police saying Yvette's been arrested. They're saying something about elder abuse and fraud. They're saying you're some kind of secret millionaire. This has to be a mistake. Tell me this is a mistake. It's not a mistake, son. Your sister has been stealing from elderly clients at Harmony Health Services for the past 2 years. She's hurt a lot of people. She tried to steal from me too, but I was working with investigators to stop her. But the Facebook post, the house, the power of attorney, if you're so rich, why did you let her throw you out on the lawn? Because we needed her to think she'd won. We needed her to make mistakes. That Facebook post she made? It's evidence now. The champagne celebration? Documented. Every smug word. Every cruel laugh. It's all going to be used against her in court. Silence on the other end. Then, Mom, I don't understand any of this. Why didn't you tell us you had money? Why did you let us think you were struggling? Because your grandfather made me promise, and because I wanted you children to grow up normal. To work for what you had. To understand the value of $1. Your sister clearly didn't learn that lesson. I need to come over. We need to talk about this face to face. Where are you? Are you still at the apartment Yvette set up? I'm at Gladys's house. And yes, you can come over. But Terrell, I need you to understand something. Your sister committed serious crimes. She stole from people who trusted her. She's going to prison. And I'm the one who made sure of it. He hung up without saying goodbye. I watched them put crime scene tape around my house. Evidence needed to be collected, apparently. All those fake documents, the forged power of attorney, the records of my stolen Social Security money. All of it evidence now. Preston Thompson crossed the street and knocked on Gladys's door. She let him in, still in her robe and rollers, and he stood in her living room looking at me with something like respect. Mrs. Washington, I know this morning is difficult, but I need you to know that what you did, the courage it took to expose your own daughter, you saved approximately 300 elderly victims from continued exploitation. We've been able to recover about $30 million that Yvette and her network stole. $30 million? Gladys sat down hard on her couch. Lord have mercy. There's more, Preston continued. We arrested 14 other employees this morning at various locations. They'd been operating a sophisticated fraud ring for approximately 2 years. Your daughter was the ringleader. She recruited the others, taught them how to forge documents, how to manipulate victims, how to cover their tracks. Without your cooperation, we might never have gotten enough evidence to stop them. I felt sick. How did my baby turn into someone who could hurt people like this? Greed, he said simply, and opportunity. Your daughter was good at her job in the beginning. She understood elder care, knew how to talk to clients, how to make them comfortable. But she also learned how vulnerable they were, how easy it would be to take advantage. She started small, probably convinced herself it wasn't really stealing. Then it escalated. There was a commotion outside. I looked out the window to see Terrell's car screeching to a stop behind the police vehicles. He jumped out and tried to run to Yvette's police car, but an officer stopped him. I could see him yelling, see his face red with anger or tears or both. Keisha got out of the passenger side, pulling Cameron behind her. My grandson looked terrified, and my heart broke seeing him witness this chaos. "I need to go to them," I said, already moving toward the door. Preston put a hand on my arm gently. "Mrs. Washington, there's something else you should know. We found evidence that your daughter was planning to have you declared incompetent in court. She'd already bribed a doctor to write a false diagnosis of dementia. She was going to have you institutionalized in a nursing home where she had contacts, where she could control your communication with the outside world. If you hadn't come to us when you did, if we hadn't started this investigation, you would have been locked away within 6 months." The room spun. Gladys grabbed my other arm to steady me. She was going to put me away? In a nursing home? Against my will? "The doctor we arrested this morning has already confessed. Dr. Nathaniel Graham. He was on your daughter's payroll. He'd done this for 12 other victims. They're all in facilities right now, unable to contact their families, while Yvette's network drains their accounts. We're working on getting them released today." I had to sit down. My own daughter had been planning to lock me away in some facility, to steal everything from me, to leave me alone and confused and cut off from anyone who might help me. The Facebook post wasn't just cruel. It was calculated. She'd been building a public narrative of a confused, incompetent old woman, so that when she finally institutionalized me, everyone would believe I needed it. "I want to see the evidence," I said. "All of it. I want to know exactly what my daughter did." Preston opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder thick as a phone book. "I brought copies of everything. But Mrs. Washington, I'm warning you, some of this is going to be painful to read. There are emails where she calls you degrading names. There are text messages with the other conspirators where she mocks you. There are recordings of conversations where she laughs about manipulating you." "Show me anyway." He laid it all out on Gladys's coffee table. Emails, bank records, forged documents, and then the messages. I read them one by one, each word a knife. The old bat actually believed me when I said she signed the papers. Too stupid to remember her own name half the time. Mom's easier to manipulate than the clients. At least they sometimes fight back. Can't wait until we get her committed. Then I can sell that house and finally buy the BMW I've been wanting. She's outlived her usefulness. Time to put her in the cheapest home I can find and forget about her. There were hundreds of messages like this. 2 years' worth of my daughter's contempt, laid out in digital permanence. Gladys was reading over my shoulder, tears streaming down her face. That evil child! That ungrateful, evil child! I felt numb. This was worse than being thrown out of my house. Worse than the stolen money. This was seeing proof that my daughter didn't just betray me. She hated me. Had hated me for years, maybe. And I'd never known. Outside, Terrell had finally gotten past the officer and was banging on the police car window, yelling at Yvette. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see her face through the glass, still defiant, still convinced somehow that she was the victim in all this. My phone rang again. Jasmine this time. I answered. "Mama? Mama, what's happening? Terrell just called me screaming about FBI and arrests and money, and I don't understand any of it. He's saying Yvette stole millions of dollars. He's saying you're secretly rich. He's saying you set up some kind of trap. None of this makes sense. Baby, I need you to come to Gladys Freeman's house. I'll explain everything, but I need you here. Can you come?" Raymond and I are already in the car with Destiny. We're 20 minutes away. Mama, I'm so confused and scared. What's happening to our family? I'm fixing it, I said. Or trying to. Just get here safe. I hung up and looked at Preston Thompson. How long until my house is cleared? I want to go home. Probably 48 hours. We need to document everything, collect all the physical evidence. But Mrs. Washington, there's something you should think about. That house has been contaminated by what happened. Every room has memories of yesterday. You might want to consider whether you really want to live there again. He was right. How could I sleep in that bedroom knowing Yvette had stood in it, mocking me? How could I eat in that kitchen where she'd planned my destruction. How could I watch TV in that living room where she'd celebrated throwing me away? "I'll buy a new house," I said. The words felt strange in my mouth. I'd been poor for so long, not really poor, but living poor, thinking poor, that the idea of just buying a new house seemed like something from someone else's life. Somewhere Yvette never stepped foot, somewhere clean. Gladys squeezed my hand. "You can stay here as long as you need. We'll figure it all out." Terrell burst through the door then, not bothering to knock, his face a mess of emotions I couldn't quite read. Cameron was behind him, and Keisha, and they all stopped when they saw Preston Thompson standing there in his expensive suit, surrounded by evidence folders. "Mom," Terrell said, his voice breaking. "Mom, tell me this isn't real. Tell me Yvette didn't really steal $30 million. Tell me you're not really worth $80 million. Tell me our family isn't really this broken." I stood up and walked to my son, this man I'd raised, who'd taken Yvette's word over mine just yesterday. "I can't tell you any of those things, because they're all true. But I can tell you this. I did what I had to do to protect innocent people, including you, your brother, and your sister. Yvette would have destroyed all of us eventually." "But you let her throw you out on the lawn. You let her humiliate you in front of the whole neighborhood." "Yes, I did, because 300 elderly victims mattered more than my pride, because stopping a criminal enterprise mattered more than my comfort. Because sometimes the only way to catch a predator is to let them think they've won." Cameron was crying now, confused and scared. I knelt down to his level, my knees protesting the movement. "Baby boy, I know this is scary. But your Auntie Yvette hurt a lot of people and Grammy had to help stop her. It doesn't mean Grammy doesn't love her. It just means sometimes love has to be tough." "Is Auntie Yvette going to jail?" he asked in a small voice. "Yes, baby, she is." He buried his face in his mother's leg, and Keisha picked him up, shooting me a look I couldn't quite interpret. Anger? Gratitude? Fear? Maybe all three. Jasmine's car pulled up outside, and she came running in with Raymond and little Destiny. My youngest daughter took one look at the scene, the evidence folders, the FBI agent in the front yard, Terrell crying, Cameron scared, and her face crumpled. "Mama, what did you do?" "I did what your grandfather trained me to do," I said quietly. "I protected the family legacy. I stopped a thief. I saved lives." "But Yvette is family. She's my sister. How could you turn her in to the FBI? How could I not?" I met her eyes, these eyes that looked so much like my own mother's. "She was destroying people's lives, baby. She was stealing their money, their homes, their dignity. She had a list of 12 people she was planning to put in nursing homes against their will so she could drain their bank accounts. Would you have had me let that continue just because she shares our blood?" Jasmine had no answer for that. She just sank onto the couch and put her face in her hands. Preston Thompson cleared his throat. "I should let you all have privacy for this conversation. Mrs. Washington, we'll need you to come to the federal building tomorrow to give your formal statement. And there will be a bail hearing for your daughter this afternoon. You have the right to attend if you choose." "Will she get bail?" I asked. "Unlikely. Flight risk, severity of crimes, ongoing investigation. But you never know what a judge might do." After he left, the 5 of us sat in Gladys's living room. Me, Terrell, Jasmine, Keisha, and Raymond, while the children played in the next room with Gladys watching them. For a long time, nobody spoke. We just sat there, breathing, trying to process the implosion of our family. Finally, Terrell said, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry I didn't believe you yesterday. I'm sorry I told you to just go to the apartment and stop causing problems. I should have known something was wrong. You thought your sister was trying to help me. She convinced you I was confused. That's what predators do. They turn everyone against the victim, so no one believes the truth when it finally comes out." Jasmine looked up at me with red eyes. "Are you really worth $80 million? Really?" Closer to 90 now, with market growth. But yes. And you never told us? You let us struggle with student loans and mortgages and car payments, and you were secretly a millionaire the whole time? Her anger was understandable, but it still hurt. Your grandfather made me promise. He wanted you all to grow up understanding the value of hard work. He didn't want you to become entitled or lazy. And look at what happened to Yvette when she found out elderly people had money they couldn't defend. She became a monster. Imagine what might have happened if you'd all grown up knowing we were wealthy. We would have been spoiled brats, Terrell admitted quietly. I get it. I hate it, but I get it. So what happens now? Jasmine asked. To all of us? To the family? Now we heal, I said. And we help the victims Yvette hurt. And we make sure this kind of thing never happens again. But even as I said it, I knew healing was going to be harder than catching Yvette. Because trust, once broken, doesn't just grow back. And our family's trust had been shattered into pieces so small, I wasn't sure we'd ever find them all. My phone buzzed with a news alert. The story was already breaking. Healthcare company heiress exposes daughter's elder abuse ring. They'd found out. The media had the story. By tomorrow, everyone would know what Yvette did. What I did. What our family had become. We need a lawyer, Raymond said suddenly. Not for Yvette, for the rest of us. To protect ourselves from whatever fallout is coming. He was right. This wasn't over. This was just beginning. The bail hearing this afternoon, the formal charges, the trial that would come eventually, the media circus, the public scrutiny, the questions from everyone we knew. How could you not know your daughter was a criminal? How could you turn in your own child? How could you let her throw you out just to catch her? And the biggest question of all, what kind of mother does that? The answer was simple. The kind of mother who loves her daughter enough to stop her before she destroys herself completely. The kind of mother who loves all people enough to sacrifice her own comfort to protect them. The kind of mother who understands that sometimes the greatest act of love is saying no. But I wasn't sure my other children understood that yet. I wasn't sure I understood it fully myself. All I knew was that I'd made a choice, and now I had to live with it. Outside, they were towing Yvette's car away. Inside my house, her house, legally, until the court sorted out the forged documents, investigators were photographing evidence. Across town, 14 other families were waking up to find their loved ones in handcuffs. And in a holding cell somewhere, my eldest daughter was probably still convinced this was all a mistake. That she'd done nothing wrong, that she was the real victim. That's what scared me most. Not that she'd done these terrible things, but that she might actually believe she'd been justified. Gladys came back into the room. Sandra, honey, Agent Stone is at the door. She says they found something else. Something about offshore accounts and a lawyer who's been helping Yvette hide money. She says it's urgent. I stood up, my bones aching from the stress and the uncomfortable couch and the weight of everything that had happened. Tell her I'll be right there. As I walked to the door, I felt my children's eyes on my back. They were looking at me differently now, not as their mother, not as the woman who'd raised them, but as a stranger who'd been living a double life for 40 years, as someone who'd hidden immense wealth while they struggled, as someone who'd turned in her own daughter to the FBI. They didn't understand yet that I'd done it all for them, that every secret kept, every sacrifice made, every hard choice chosen, it was all to give them a chance at a life that meant something beyond money. But they'd understand eventually. At least, I hoped they would. Because if they didn't, then I'd lost all 3 of my children instead of just 1. And that was a possibility I couldn't afford to consider. Not now, not when there was still so much more to face. Agent Stone stood on Gladys's porch with a tablet in her hand, and the look on her face told me the nightmare wasn't over. It was about to get worse. The bail hearing was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon, but by 10 that morning, I was already sitting in Attorney Florence Mitchell's office learning that Yvette's crimes went deeper than anyone had imagined. Mrs. Washington, I need to prepare you for what's coming, Florence said, spreading documents across her mahogany desk. She was a 62-year-old black woman who'd built her reputation defending the vulnerable, and Preston Thompson had hired her personally to represent me through whatever came next. Your daughter didn't just steal $30 million. According to the forensic accountants, she's hidden approximately $47 million in offshore accounts under various shell companies. She's been doing this for closer to 4 years, not 2. And the nursing home scheme? She'd already institutionalized 19 people, not 12. 19 elderly victims locked away while she drained their life savings. I felt the air leave my lungs. 19 people. 19 families destroyed. Where are they now, these 19 people? Federal agents are retrieving them as we speak. Some of them have been in facilities for over a year, told that their families abandoned them, medicated to keep them compliant. Mrs. Washington, your daughter built a machine designed to destroy the elderly and profit from their suffering. What you exposed is one of the largest elder abuse cases in this state's history. Terrell and Jasmine sat beside me, both pale as ghosts. They'd insisted on coming to understand the full scope of what their sister had done. Now Terrell looked like he might be sick. $47 million? How is that even possible? She was very good at what she did, Florence replied. She targeted victims with no close family or estranged family members who wouldn't notice sudden silence. She forged powers of attorney, created fake email accounts to communicate with concerned relatives, even hired actors to pretend to be the victims on video calls with distant family. It was sophisticated, organized, and absolutely ruthless. And the lawyer? I asked. Agent Stone mentioned a lawyer helping her. Florence's expression hardened. Randall Pierce, 43 years old, been practicing for 15 years. He drafted all the legal documents, made everything look legitimate. He's been arrested too. In fact, he's trying to cut a deal by testifying against Yvette. Says she was the mastermind. He just provided legal cover. He's claiming he didn't know the full extent of the fraud. Do you believe him? Not for a second. He knew exactly what he was doing. But if his testimony helps put your daughter away for longer, I'll take it. The words felt surreal. Put your daughter away for longer. Like we were talking about prison sentences, not my baby girl who used to bring me dandelions from the yard and call them flowers. My phone buzzed. A text from Gladys. Sandra, turn on Channel 7. You need to see this. I pulled up the news app on my phone, and there it was. Yvette's mugshot plastered across every major outlet. Healthcare heiress daughter arrested in massive elder abuse scheme. Local woman accused of stealing $47 million from vulnerable seniors. FBI raids expose sophisticated fraud ring targeting the elderly. And there, in smaller text below, Sandra Washington, 69, worked undercover with federal agents to expose her own daughter's crimes. Jasmine read over my shoulder and gasped. Mama, they're calling you a hero. Look at the comments. I scrolled through them. This woman sacrificed everything to protect strangers. That's true love. Imagine having the courage to turn in your own child. Respect. Sandra Washington is what real strength looks like. But there were other comments, too. What kind of mother turns in her daughter? Family first, always. She should be ashamed. Rich people have no loyalty, not even to blood. The divide cut straight through me. Half the world thought I was brave, the other half thought I was a traitor. Don't read those, Florence said firmly. Public opinion doesn't matter. Justice matters. And speaking of justice, we need to get to the courthouse. The bail hearing starts in 3 hours, and I want you prepared for what Yvette's attorney might say about you. The courthouse was chaos. News trucks lined the street. Reporters shouted questions as we pushed through the crowd. Mrs. Washington, how does it feel to put your daughter in prison? Sandra, do you regret turning her in? Were you really planning this for 3 months? Inside, the courtroom was packed. I saw faces I recognized from church. Reverend Pierce, Deacon Turner, half the choir. Gladys was there with at least a dozen neighbors, but I also saw faces I didn't know, holding signs. Justice for Elder Abuse Victims and Sandra Washington, American Hero. And then I saw them. The victims, or at least some of them. Elderly men and women in wheelchairs, some looking confused, some looking angry, some just looking relieved to be out of whatever facility Yvette had trapped them in. Their families sat beside them, many crying. One woman, probably in her late 70s, caught my eye. She was thin, too thin, with hollow eyes that had seen too much suffering. Her daughter leaned over and whispered something to her, and the old woman looked at me and mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." I had to look away before I started crying. Judge Patricia Thornton entered, and we all stood. She was a formidable black woman in her mid-50s with a reputation for tough sentencing in elder abuse cases. Yvette's attorney had probably been hoping for someone more lenient. They brought Yvette in wearing an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of her. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. But when her eyes found mine across the courtroom, I saw no remorse, only fury, pure, burning rage. Her attorney, a slick-looking man named Howard Chen, immediately launched into his argument. "Your Honor, my client is a respected member of the community, a devoted mother, a skilled healthcare professional. She has no prior criminal record. She poses no flight risk. The charges against her are based largely on circumstantial evidence and the word of her own mother, who has clear financial motivation to frame her daughter." Florence stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. "Your Honor, the defendant has $47 million in offshore accounts. She has a passport and connections to countries without extradition treaties. She has demonstrated a pattern of sophisticated planning and deception spanning 4 years. And the evidence against her includes her own Facebook posts celebrating the financial exploitation of her mother, hundreds of forged documents, and testimony from 14 co-conspirators who are cooperating with federal prosecutors. This is not circumstantial. This is overwhelming." Judge Thornton looked at Yvette. "Ms. Washington, is there anything you'd like to say?" Yvette stood, and her voice was steady. Too steady. "Your Honor, my mother has always been difficult. She's manipulative, controlling, and she's convinced herself that I'm some kind of criminal because I tried to help her manage her finances. Everything I did was legal under the power of attorney she signed. If she now regrets giving me that authority, that's not fraud. That's family conflict." The lies came so smooth, so practiced. She actually believed them, or had convinced herself she did. "Ms. Washington," the judge said, her voice ice-cold, "I've reviewed the evidence packet prepared by federal prosecutors. I've seen the emails where you call your mother degrading names. I've seen the text messages where you laugh about stealing from her. I've seen the list of 19 victims you institutionalized against their will. And I've seen the bank records showing $47 million in stolen funds. This is not family conflict. This is organized crime." Yvette's face went white. "Bail is denied. You'll remain in federal custody until trial. Preliminary hearing is set for 30 days from today. And Ms. Washington, I'm going to say something I rarely say in bail hearings. I hope they throw the book at you. What you did to vulnerable people is unconscionable." The gavel came down, and Yvette's composure finally broke. She twisted toward me, screaming, "This is your fault! You did this to me! You ruined my life! I hate you! Do you hear me? I hate you!" Guards moved to restrain her, but she kept screaming, "You were supposed to die years ago! Why won't you just die and leave me your money? That's all you're good for! Die!" The courtroom erupted. Terrell jumped to his feet, yelling at his sister. Several victims' family members started shouting. Judge Thornton banged her gavel repeatedly. "Order! Clear the defendant from my courtroom!" They dragged Yvette out, still screaming, still spewing hatred at me. Her voice echoed down the hallway. "I should have smothered you in your sleep. I should have—" The door closed, cutting off whatever horrible thing she was about to say. The courtroom was silent. Everyone stared at me, waiting to see if I'd break. Waiting to see if hearing my daughter wish me dead would finally be too much. I just sat there, hands folded in my lap, and breathed, in and out, in and out. Reverend Pierce appeared at my side. "Sister Sandra, let's pray." Right there in the courtroom, with the judge still on the bench and the reporters recording everything, my pastor put his hand on my shoulder and prayed. "Lord, we ask for strength for Sister Sandra. We ask for healing for this broken family. We ask for justice for the victims. And Lord, we ask that you soften Yvette's heart, that she might see the evil she's done and truly repent. In Jesus' name, amen." "Amen," echoed dozens of voices around the courtroom. Judge Thornton looked down at us. "Mrs. Washington, I want you to know that what you did took extraordinary courage. You put justice above family loyalty, and that's a choice very few people would make. This court recognizes your sacrifice." I stood, my knees shaking. "Your Honor, I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because 19 people were suffering and I could stop it. That's all." She nodded. "The court is adjourned." Outside the courthouse, the scene had grown even bigger. More news crews, more spectators, and now a crowd of people holding signs thanking me. One sign read, "Sandra Washington saved my mother." Another, "Heroes don't wear capes, they testify." A woman in her 50s pushed through the crowd toward me. She was crying, holding a framed photo of an elderly man. "Mrs. Washington, my father was one of the 19. They had him in a facility for 8 months. We thought he'd chosen to cut us off. We thought he didn't love us anymore. But it was her, your daughter. She'd been reading our emails, deleting our messages, telling him we'd abandoned him, and all that time she was stealing his retirement money. But he's back now. He's home. Because of you." She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, and I felt her tears on my shoulder. Then another family. And another. 5 of the 19 victims' families were there, all telling similar stories. Months of silence, confusion, heartbreak. And then the knock on the door from federal agents explaining that their loved ones hadn't abandoned them, they'd been stolen. "My mother has Alzheimer's," one man said. "Your daughter knew that. She knew Mom couldn't defend herself. She knew Mom would be confused and scared and wouldn't understand what was happening. And she did it anyway. She looked at my mother's vulnerability and saw dollar signs." I met each family member, heard each story, absorbed each piece of pain that Yvette had caused. By the time the last one finished, I was exhausted. Soul-deep exhausted. Florence guided me to a quiet corner. "Sandra, I need to tell you something. The prosecutors are offering Yvette a deal. 20 years if she pleads guilty and returns all the stolen money. But if she goes to trial and loses, she's looking at 50 to 70 years in federal prison. She's 42 years old. Even 20 years means she doesn't get out until she's 62. 50 years means she dies in prison." What do they want from me? They want to know if you'll support the plea deal, if you'll make a statement asking for leniency. It might sway the judge at sentencing. I thought about Yvette screaming that she wished I would die. Thought about the 19 victims. Thought about the $47 million stolen. Thought about the Facebook post celebrating throwing me on the lawn. "No," I said. "Let her go to trial. Let a jury see everything she did. Let her face the full consequences of her choices. My daughter doesn't deserve leniency. She deserves justice." Florence nodded like she'd expected that answer. "Okay, then we prepare for trial. It'll be months from now, probably 6 to 8. And Sandra, it's going to be brutal. They'll drag you through everything. Your parenting, your choices, your wealth, why you hid it. They'll try to make you look like a bad mother who drove her daughter to crime. Let them try. I know who I am. I know what I did. And I'd do it again." We left the courthouse through a side door to avoid more reporters. Terrell and Jasmine met us at Florence's car, both looking shell-shocked. "I can't believe she said that," Jasmine whispered. "About you dying. About smothering you. That's not my sister. That can't be my sister." "That's exactly your sister," I said gently. "That's who she became. Maybe who she always was underneath. And we just didn't see it." Terrell was crying openly now. "I should have seen it. I should have known something was wrong. But I just believed her when she said you were confused. I chose her lies over your truth. Mom, I'm so sorry." I pulled him into a hug, this man who'd once been my little boy. "You believed your sister because that's what family does. You trusted her because I raised you to trust each other. That's not your fault. That's hers." We drove back to Gladys's house in silence. When we got there, the living room was full. People from church, neighbors, even some of my late husband's old friends. Someone had brought food: fried chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese, cornbread. The smell of home. Deacon Turner stood up when I entered. "Sister Sandra, we took up a collection at church this morning. We know you've got your own resources, but we wanted to show our support. We raised $18,342. We want you to use it however you need. New house, legal fees, whatever helps." I looked at these people, some of whom could barely afford to put gas in their cars, and they'd given $18,000 to help me. A woman they thought was poor, a woman who'd hidden her wealth for 40 years. "I can't take this," I said, my voice breaking. "You all need this money more than I do." "No, ma'am," Reverend Pierce said firmly. "You need to know you're not alone. You need to know this community stands with you. The money isn't about need. It's about love." I cried then. Really cried. For the first time since Sunday when I'd seen my furniture on the lawn, I let myself fall apart. Gladys held me on one side, Jasmine on the other, and I sobbed until I had nothing left. Later that evening, after everyone had gone home and the food was put away, I sat with my 2 remaining children on Gladys's back porch. The night was cool and clear, stars visible despite the city lights. "What do we do now?" Jasmine asked. "How do we move forward from this?" "We help the victims," I said. "All of them. I'm going to use my resources to make sure every single person Yvette hurt gets their money back. And I'm going to set up a foundation to protect other elderly people from this kind of abuse. Turn this nightmare into something that helps people." "The Sandra Washington Foundation for Elder Protection," Terrell said quietly. "That's what you should call it." "No, the Gregory Washington Foundation, after your grandfather. He's the one who built the wealth. He's the one who taught me to value integrity over money. This will be his legacy, not mine." We sat in silence for a while, just being together. Then Jasmine said, "Mama, I need to ask you something. Did you ever love Yvette? After you found out what she was doing, did you stop loving her?" It was the question I'd been asking myself for 3 months. "I love her enough to stop her," I finally said. "I love her enough to let her face consequences instead of enabling her to hurt more people. I love her enough to hope that someday, maybe in prison, she'll understand what she did and truly change. But I don't like her anymore, and I'm not sure I ever will again." "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard," Jasmine whispered. "Yes," I agreed. "It is." My phone buzzed. A text from Preston Thompson. "Board meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Time to officially take your seat as majority shareholder. Time to rebuild the company culture. Time to make sure nothing like this ever happens at Harmony Health Services again." I typed back, "I'll be there." For 40 years, I'd been hiding, living small, pretending to be less than I was. My father had meant well with his request for secrecy, but maybe it had been a mistake. Maybe if I'd been visible, been present in the company, used my voice and my power, Yvette would never have had the opportunity to do what she did, But I couldn't change the past. I could only shape the future. "I'm buying a new house," I announced to my children. "A big one. Big enough for both of you and your families to visit whenever you want. Big enough for Sunday dinners and birthday parties and Christmas mornings. Big enough to rebuild what we lost." "Can we afford to visit a millionaire's house?" Terrell asked with a sad smile. "Won't our cars look out of place in the driveway?" "Your cars will look perfect, because it won't be a millionaire's house. It'll be your mother's house. And you're always welcome." Jasmine leaned her head on my shoulder. "I'm sorry I doubted you. I'm sorry I thought you were being difficult. I should have known better." "You're young," I said. "You still believe the best about people. Don't lose that, baby. The world needs people who believe in goodness." But even as I said it, I wondered if I still believed in goodness myself. I'd seen the worst of humanity in my own daughter. I'd watched her celebrate my destruction. I'd heard her wish for my death. How do you come back from that? How do you trust anyone ever again? The answer came to me slowly, like dawn breaking. You trust the ones who show up. You trust the ones who bring fried chicken when you're hurting. You trust the ones who pray with you in courtrooms and collect money they don't have to show you're not alone. You trust the ones who cry with you and for you and sometimes because of you. You trust the family you build, not just the family you're born with. We sat on that porch until midnight, the three of us, planning futures and mourning pasts and trying to figure out how to be a family when 1/3 of our number was missing. When 1/3 of our hearts was locked in a cell awaiting trial for destroying lives. My phone buzzed one more time. A news alert. Yvette Washington faces 73 federal charges in elder abuse case. Trial set for April. 73 charges. Each one representing a victim. Each one carrying years in prison. Each one a piece of the daughter I'd lost. But also, each one a step toward justice. Each one a protection for future victims. Each one a message that no one, not even my own child, was above the law. I looked up at the stars, at the vast universe that made our problems seem small, and I prayed. Not for Yvette to escape consequences, not for this to magically go away, but for strength, for wisdom, for the courage to face whatever came next. Because I knew one thing for certain. This story wasn't over. The trial would come. The media circus would continue. The public would judge me, praise me, condemn me. My daughter would fight. The victims would testify. The truth would be laid bare for everyone to see. And through it all, I would stand. Because I was Sandra Washington, daughter of Gregory Washington, mother of 3, grandmother of 3, heir to $80 million, and the woman who chose justice over comfort. I would stand and I would not break. Not today, not ever. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.